Meeting.
Good morning, everybody. And today we continue with our series of interviews. And as you know, I'm interviewing the people that I love, the people that I think are exciting, and the people that have got something to share. A little bit of knowledge, and there's no right or wrong answer, as we've said before, because all of us are unique. So today, who we've got with us is Rebecca Pflaum, but I like to call her Bexy. Hi, Bexy. How are you?
Hey, Jilly. I'm so good. Very
And
happy to be here. Yeah.
welcome on board. And the very first thing, just tell everybody a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Um, I think one of the very few things that I feel that's been very consistent in my life when I think about a pattern of, because you had asked me before, Jilly, what I like to do, is I find that whenever I've been blessed or gifted with a piece of wisdom, immediately I want to share it. Like I feel this deep sense of responsibility to share it, to teach it, to offer it. And I would say since I was about 17 years old, which is a number of years ago now, that's what I've been doing. And it brings me great satisfaction. And I'd like to think it also offers others inspiration and upliftment. So it's a beautiful win-win situation. Yeah.
So, what is it that you actually share? What do you do?
Yeah, well, I've done many things. I would say the biggest thing I've done in my life as a woman and as a mother is I've given birth to 4 sons, and they're all absolutely wonderful and delicious. And they've been great teachers for me. But I've actually spent many, many years of my life teaching um, teaching our potential, but through the physical body. So tapping into different energetic levels. When I look back and realize this now, using the physical body through dance, through yoga. I even taught high impact aerobics, I have to confess, with leg warmers and the headband for 15 years. But realizing the deep connection from quite an early age, although I didn't have the tools to express it way back then, of the mind-body connection. And I always realize that when I am, and it's not about body image at all, but that when I'm feeling stronger and more flexible and connected to my physical body, I personally seem to be more connected to those other aspects of what it means to be human. And I have found that to be true with so many people that I've been really honored to teach over the many, many years. So it's really, for me, very much about the mind-body connection and embodying that wisdom that we can pull in through our physical practice, which allows us to realize we're so much more than this physical body, but we are also this amazing physical body, and to embody it the best that we can, the best that we can.
So, Bex, would you say that that is your passion?
My passion is to share inspiration. So whether the inspiration comes through using the physical body with movement, whether it comes through dance, whether it comes through using sound, high frequency sound and beautiful music, cooking and sharing a gorgeous meal. Like my passion is to inspire, also weaving into that, Jilly, the aspect of beauty. And when I say beauty, I'm not at all limiting it to, the surface physical beauty, which is also wonderful, but that sense of beauty where you feel the truth of something, it actually becomes beautiful when it's true. Like it touches a place deep within ourselves where we feel moved and inspired and uplifted, and our lives feel richer and more enhanced when we're in contact with beauty. And I've always found that, like, I like my home to be beautiful, but for me, beautiful is where people walk in and say, oh, I feel so relaxed and I feel at home. To me, that's beautiful. To me, beauty is a reminder of that which is authentically us. And it can manifest in so many different ways. But I do feel that we're also sensitive as human beings to physical beauty. Like, for example, in nature, when you see flowers or the leaves that are changing color now, it does something to us. Like on a cellular level, I feel like it really does something to us because of that connection between all.
So then what do you think happens to people who don't connect with their bodies?
So that's a really great question, because I would never sit here and say, if you don't connect to your physical bodies, then your life is meaningless or you're missing out on so much. But, and again, I will only share and speak about things that I've personally experienced, not things that I've just read about in a book. So I can only talk about it in a certain way from my own perspective, because I've gone through periods of times, let's say, where I was not, for whatever reason, connecting so much to my physical body. And I really felt much more disabled. I felt much less in tune. I felt much less connected to that which is not physical. For me, that has always been my experience. And like, I just know through all these thousands of classes that I've taught over many decades, that when people do get physical, when they get into their bodies, it opens up all these non-physical worlds as well. But of course, there are some people that are more inclined than others to use their physical body. And there's some people who, for whatever reason, they're not able to. So that's why I don't want to sit here at all and say that it totally diminishes life. It doesn't. But we are human. We do have physical bodies, and something happens when we move them, when we inspire them, when we start to stir all that like electromagnetic juice that we have inside of ourselves, right? Like wondrous things happen. Or even sometimes I'll just get people together, I'll just say, just shake your body, just shake it, and then stop. And they're like, wow, you know, and then sometimes like almost as a joke, I'll say, yeah, and that's like 2 years of psychotherapy right there. Like it's something, you know, it really, really makes a difference. And I would even go so far to say, you know, because there are these practices of like yogic therapy or physical therapy where, let's say, somebody cannot move their body, or they can only move half their body, but they can use their imagination, because our imagination is one of our most powerful tools, as the wise Albert Einstein once said. Imagination is our most powerful tool. So for example, let's say we get an injury, but if we imagine that we're still moving our bodies in a certain way, the energy still flows. It's amazing what happens, because they have the technology to see this, to measure this. So whether it's literally on a physical, visceral level we move, or in our imagination, move it, because it makes a difference. Makes a difference.
My husband always says, if you don't move it, you're going to lose it.
Right, use it or lose it, yeah. But maybe you're moving it in your imagination, and that's also very powerful and very therapeutic and very healing, and it does make a difference.
So what about the people that say they don't have time to exercise?
It's a choice. Everything's a choice. You need to prioritize. And yeah, sometimes we don't have as much time as we want, but even if it's literally taking 2 minutes and like shaking your body like crazy, or doing a bit of breath work, or just do something, put on some great music and dance, just even for 2 minutes. I think everybody has 2 minutes. So it's a choice.
So Bexy, why do you think it is that somebody wouldn't choose to get the best out of themselves?
Whoa. That's a big question. I mean, there's never one reason, and I'm finding, ironically, you know, I was sort of looking forward to getting older. Now I find like the older I get, the less I know and the less answers I have. Like I used to be Little Miss Know-It-All, and I'm like now Little Miss Know Nothing almost, except what I've felt in my life, and that's what I like to share and talk about. So why would somebody choose not to? I mean, there's so many reasons, Jill. It could be they don't feel that they're worthy. They don't feel that it will honestly make a difference. And I want to share this experience because it was profound, that I had maybe 10 years ago. I was going through good old menopause. And I've always been quite an energetic, optimistic, go-get-em kind of person. Maybe I stood in judgment sometimes of myself and others. Like if somebody had said to me, oh, I really just can't do it, I can't get off my tush and go do something, I would just say, you're just being lazy. Of course you can. Well, I was knocked out for 3 days. When I say knocked out, I mean, I went into a deep, dark depression. And fortunately, it only lasted 3 days. I was living in Tokyo at the time, where I couldn't think of one single reason why I would want to get out of bed. There was zero joy left. Nothing impassioned me. It was dark. It was heavy. It was not my usual state of being. And fortunately, lasted 3 days. And what I realized after those 3 days is how is it so important never to judge or never to think that you really know what's going on in somebody else's mind or in their hearts, in their bodies, because we can often be wrong, you know? And what I experienced in that state for 3 days was no matter what anybody said to me or did, it didn't make a difference. And we can have that as a human being. We can have that experience where we can literally get that stuck. I am not able to answer why that happens. I just know that I had that real experience, and it humbled me to be more careful about how I judge myself and others, because that can happen in life too, you know?
So none of us can stand in judgment because we have no idea what's going on in somebody else's lives. Now, talking about lives, I'm now going to jump all over the show.
Okay.
Question to question.
Go for it.
Going to be nothing boring about this.
I'm so surprised.
So, straight on, talking about lives. What about multiple lives? What do you think about that? And are you Bexy, and that is the total of who you are? What are your beliefs?
When you say multiple lives, do you mean spontaneously at the same time, or are you talking about reincarnation?
Both.
Both.
How do you think it works, and does it work, and is it even a possibility?
Okay. So what I feel, until I don't feel this, but what I feel right now, I definitely feel that reincarnation is real, because it really explains, I feel, certain like gifts or talents or beliefs or abilities that people come in at a very, very young age with sometimes, or certain understandings or certain memories or certain affinities to certain places on the planet or certain kinds of food or certain ways of dressing or certain colors, which cannot always be explained through the present life they're in right now. You know, and there's so much research on this in so many books, especially with children under the age of 7, I think, where they can remember so much from their previous lives, even the names of their parents or the names of the street that they lived on. And people have taken these kids back to these places. So I definitely believe that reincarnation is real, that it does happen. But I also believe that, for example, I'm sitting here right now in this 3D physical body of Bexy, but I do feel, and I don't know if I have the correct languaging for this, Jill, but simultaneously at the same time, depending upon what I'm thinking and how I'm thinking about it, I could imagine, and not just imagine, but feel myself doing something else on a different, almost like on a different dimension, maybe. It's almost like visualizing the power of choice in that minute, right? That all these possibilities are there simultaneously, and depending upon which one we choose, we're going to feel this way or this way or this way or this way, right? And then we'll take this action or that action. And it's really profound that we can actually even think and feel into this, if that makes sense.
So do you think that the choices that you make as the 3D Bexy would affect the other fractals of your soul?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Actually, I definitely think they do, because just like if your big toe hurts, you're aware of it on some level throughout your whole body. You can't just separate it. So I think everything that we do, everything that I do to this Bexy right now here, the others are aware of and they feel. But I think there's different ways to participate and to respond to any given situation. So I think depending upon your state of awareness in a certain way to a certain thing, it will determine your experience of that.
Okay, so what about when you have the feelings that you have
Hmm.
and you have that spiritual connection? What form does that take? Do you need an intermediary, like a priest or a rabbi or a guru or whatever? Or do you feel that you have a direct line? And if you do have a direct line, how do you have it? Do you have a form of meditation, or do you have automatic writing, or do you have something called guides?
Yeah.
Because so many people have different experiences, and it seems to me that the people that I've been talking to, all of them can connect in a different way, and it doesn't matter what way they choose.
Hmm.
It's not one size fits all.
No, right. So that's such a huge, beautiful question. Ooh la la. I mean, I think there's like so many paths up the proverbial mountain. There's never one way. And also, what I'd like to say is, I also find it a little bit somewhat interesting and very perverse that as human beings, we have the ability to ask so many questions that we cannot always get an answer to, but yet we continue to ask. I find that interesting. But what I do want to say is, I definitely believe we have a direct connection, a direct Zoom call that we can move into, to that best version, to that highest understanding of who we are. It doesn't mean we don't need outside inspiration sometimes, or some guidance, or a therapist, or whatever. But I really think at the end of the proverbial day, we honestly already have every single thing that we need within ourselves. And the whole purpose, one of the purposes of life, is just to remember, is to reconnect, with that best version of ourselves that already lies within ourselves. And one really strong path for me that came my way was using the practice of Kundalini yoga and meditation. The reasons don't matter why. And like, as we know, there's endless beautiful paths out there. But I feel like the end result is often the same.
But
So,
what is, to interrupt you,
yeah,
what is Kundalini yoga? Because apparently there are lots of different types of yoga. So
yeah,
why this one in particular?
yeah. So when I say Kundalini, what it's referring to is an energy that's within our body. You could also call it Shakti. It's that feminine, creative, healing energy. It's an energy of manifestation. It's an energy that gives birth. It's an energy that we use whenever we're doing anything creative. And as human beings, we've got a big pot of this energy. I often view it as our potential. So our potential, where is it? It's already inside of us, right? We don't have to go shopping for potential. We've already got it right within ourselves. So when we find something that allows us to tap into that huge pot of beautiful potential, when we start to stir it, when we start to move it, when we start to inspire it, we feel more alive, we feel more creative, we feel more human, we feel more expressive, we feel more loving, we feel freaking good, because it's our nature. That is who we really are. Our nature, I believe deeply, is to be creative. And Kundalini, Shakti, whatever we want to call it, that feminine energy is such a powerful creative energy that when we're feeling it, when we're using it, when we're tapping into it, we become the best version of ourselves.
So is that for men as well?
Absolutely. When I say feminine energy, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, we have both energies within ourselves. So I'm really not referring to what's between the legs, right? But I'm just referring to those different energies, the different characteristics of both the feminine and the masculine energy. But the Kundalini energy is a feminine energy, and men have it equally, physical men have it equally to physical women. But it's a beautiful energy that allows us to, this has been my experience over 20 years of practicing now and sharing it and teaching it. It allows us to tap into our inner wisdom, into this incredible intelligence that we're born with. to that stuff that we just know to be true because it's part of who we are. It's part of our DNA. It's part of what's inside, what flows within our bodies. It's already there.
So what you're teaching, Bex, because I don't know anything about yoga. I mean, we've had our little chat about my very first yoga experience.
We did, yeah.
And so if somebody came to your yoga class and you taught them Kundalini, could they be beginners?
Absolutely. If you can breathe, you can do it.
So it's not super difficult contortions and
like
standing on your head and...
No, like I had a teacher and it was great. He said, look, if you just want to be strong and flexible, and there's nothing wrong with that, go to circus school, right? But when you step into a yoga practice, it's really about tapping into that greater part of yourself that affects your physical body, but it's not about your physical body, really, you know?
So you're connecting the physical with the internal. So through the way that you actually teach this specific kind of yoga, is that opening the inner connection?
Yeah, it's allowing you to feel things that maybe you haven't felt for a long time, because it's more of an energy. We use the physical body, but the end result is a very strong energetic practice that allows you to start to feel and maybe to release blockages in your body, to open up the energy centers, the chakras, right? Which are also connected to organs and glands and thoughts and feelings and ways of viewing your life. Like we can't separate our body from our feelings and our organs and our glands and our beliefs on life. Like they're all woven together so tightly. And so when we do start to move the physical body, it also starts to stir and to release energy. And then energy can start to move through blockages. And then you can start to feel or to remember maybe things that you haven't in a long time, or you start to feel more centered, or you start to feel, I mean, for me, what I love in the practice is afterwards, I always feel both extremely grounded and very expansive. And I love that. And I think we've spoken about this a little bit, Julie, like for me, so-called spirituality, like to me, I want it to be user-friendly. I want it to be practical because we are human in physical bodies on the earth. So yes, it's beautiful to expand and to go up wherever up is. Actually, it's really just going in, right? Get all those goodies and then bring them back down here into earth and use it here, you know? Because we want to make this life as beautiful and rich and satisfying and loving as possible. And so when we start to use all those tools that we already have, it happens. It happens.
And so your gift is teaching everybody to connect to themselves inwards and outwards and that expansion. But Bex is only one of you, and you've got your new space where you are. So are you offering lessons there? What are you doing?
Yeah, I've started to offer some lessons during the week, but what I want to do in the fairly near future is to offer a module, a training of the structure of some of these practices that everybody can do, and then they can add them to whatever else it is that they're already doing. It's just
and have that online.
Pardon?
And put that online.
I probably should do that.
I think that's an excellent idea.
I think so too. Okay, I'll figure it out. Yes.
Okay. So now getting back to the question about having an intermediary and a guide or your automatic writing, how do you get your answers?
I get them by what I feel inside my body. Because what I know to be true, at least through this life that I've lived, is that the body doesn't lie. Like those gut feelings, those intuitive hits, those aha moments, they're always true.
Okay.
Our mind can be very sneaky, and our mind maybe isn't always as truthful as our body.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you don't listen to your telling you, that's usually when it shows up in your body.
You froze. You're frozen. Defrost. Sorry.
Okay, am I back?
You're back. Okay.
So when we don't listen to our minds, do you think that's when our body tells us, listen, we've got a problem here, and that's when you get your aches and pains because you haven't been listening?
Yeah, I think they can be happening at the same time, and then you need to choose who you're going to listen to. Like, for example, sometimes you might be invited to go somewhere, and your first initial gut feeling is like, don't do it, don't go there. But then your mind is like, no, it'll be okay, I can handle it, it's fine, or whatever. And you go there and it's not a good result. And you're like, why didn't I listen to myself? What does that mean? Why didn't I listen to myself? Why didn't I listen to that gut feeling? Why am I trying to justify and overanalyze and overthink things? When will we really learn to trust our intuitive hits, to trust our intuition? Maybe it doesn't make sense. That's not the only way to make a decision, right? I'm not saying there isn't a time and place for that. There is. But I think we miss many, many golden opportunities, because we just don't go with those gut feelings because they don't seem to be logical or to make sense. Yeah. Fortunately, I seem to have a nature where I do a lot of things that don't make sense. a lot of people let me know. But I have to say, they often turn out miraculously
Pretty
well.
good.
Not every time, but pretty often.
Bexy, do you think you've got a guide? Do you think you're guided?
I'm going to be really honest here. I'd like to say to you, yes, I have a guide and I know their name and what they look like, but I can't say that. For me, it's just always been like an intuitive feeling. Like I can't say I really hear things or see things. I've always been a person that's very based on the sentient feeling, that those hits that I get inside of my body.
It's a knowing.
It's a knowing.
Yes.
It's a knowing in the physical body for me. Yeah.
And that's what I love, that everybody's different. So what about life on other galaxies? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it would be incredibly arrogant and ignorant to think that we're the only ones. So there's no part of me that thinks that, right? Like even statistically, it wouldn't make sense. But also my gut feeling says, of course, there's other life out there. But I'm not aware that I've really had contact with that life out there.
So you haven't seen anything, you haven't experienced anything like that in your life as Bexy?
No, I have not. No.
Okay, so for you, no.
It's fascinating, Jill, this big trip that we all just did to Castle Hill in New Zealand, since we've been there, and it's not about labeling it or anything like that, but what I do know is that I feel much lighter and more inspired. So I don't know what was over there, but I think there are certain spots upon this planet that do affect our sense of awareness and consciousness and well-being. I often don't fall into the category where I need to label it. So I can sit in the not knowing what it was, but just grateful that it exists.
Okay, that sounds fair.
Yeah.
Now, do you think it's possible for people to increase or decrease their vibrations?
Absolutely, 100%, at least 100%, because all there is vibration. That's what the whole world, the whole universe, the whole galaxy is, are frequencies of vibrations, right? So it's like when you're vibrating at a certain frequency, it's like if you want to tune into a certain radio channel, you have to get into a certain wavelength, otherwise it's not going to connect. And so I think it's true of us as well, that when we're vibrating at a certain frequency, we're going to be aware of certain things and feel certain things as opposed to being at a different frequency. So let's say, just as a very simple example, let's just say fear vibrates at a much lower frequency and a much denser frequency than love, right? So we're going, but I'll never say everything is 100% because I feel, for me, and maybe this is not true, but I feel it's a bit arrogant for me to say this is 100%, but part of me feels like it is as well. Like you attract what you're vibrating, you attract the frequencies that you're at. But I'm very careful with that, Jill, because it's not always so black and white, right? Like we were saying in the very beginning, to never judge. Like you might see a person who seems to be really beautiful and loving, but that still doesn't mean something challenging is not going to happen to them. That happens all the time. So-called bad things happen to good people all the time. You know, we see that all the time. So I feel like we have to be very careful in making certain kinds of generalizations. But what I do feel is that there are definitely tools and practices and ways of thinking and being and moving our bodies and the food that we eat and the thoughts that we have and the music that we listen to that all affects the quality and the level of the frequencies that we vibrate. You know?
Okay, so what then to you defines fear?
Fear, I think, is, to me, it's connected to not always the unknown, because I'm okay not knowing certain things, but to me the fear is connected to loss of things that matter to me, or to things that I love, or to a certain way of being, or to a certain ability to, that's a really interesting question, to connect and have access to certain people and places and things, and even a place within myself. If that is lost, that would be very fearful.
Fearful for you.
Yeah, yeah. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
So when you had those 3 days of deep depression,
Yeah.
did you have any fear going through that, thinking, is this how it's going to be?
Absolutely, because I didn't know how long it was going to last. So there I did have a fear of the unknown, because I didn't know how long I would be in that state, you know.
Hmm.
And also being in that darkness, it felt fearful as well.
So what would you have wanted people to do while you were in that state? What would have been the most helpful? I'm just saying that because you have been in that state, and there might be people listening that are currently feeling like that, like
Yeah.
nothing's going to help. What
Right.
would you have liked from someone who cares and loves about you to
Hmm.
help you through that state?
I think just knowing that there are people there who are loving you, even as you are, and they will be there to support you, even as you are, helps. Because at that moment, for those 3 days, Jill, there was nothing I could even suggest that I wanted. I mean, it was really intense. I don't know where that came from, but again, I'm grateful I had that experience. But I think a very strong bottom line for human beings is we want to feel worthy of love, and we want to feel that we can give love no matter what. And somehow I think that can be the big game changer, you know, so that even if you're in your darkest place, it doesn't mean that you're still not lovable. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy. It just means that right now you're in a dark place. And we know that everything changes. Everything changes. We don't know the timeline all the time, right?
It always does.
We don't
Change is
know if it's going to
inevitable.
be 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, or 3 years. But we do know that things do change.
Nothing is forever, the
Nothing.
happy or the sad.
Pardon?
I said nothing is forever, the happy or the sad.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on death? What happens to Bexy when Bexy's no longer here?
Yeah. So when this earth suit goes bye-bye, I do believe that there is, and again, just because we have to choose words so we can talk about it, like I'll say consciousness, or there's an awareness or an energetic ball of me that will live forever, and maybe just transmute and transform into different, sometimes into different physical experiences and sometimes not. But I think there's a collective energy that is made up of what's left after we leave our physical bodies, you know, which makes it unique, which makes it unique.
Okay, so, oh,
You,
sorry. So before Bexy goes bye-byes,
yeah,
what is it that you still would like to accomplish?
Hmm. Well, I want to come see you in Wanaka.
Woohoo!
Um, I would, I would like to be able to reach and to teach and to touch, reach, teach, and touch more people on sharing experiences and tools that I've gathered over the years that have really helped me, that have really inspired me, that have been consistently good, and that have been my go-to through all the many different phases that as a human being we go through in life. Um, like I said, I think from a very early age, I always loved to teach. I always loved to share things that I enjoyed, you know, didn't have to be yoga or dance or aerobics. It could be many other things. You know, if I hear a beautiful poem or I read a beautiful book or I get an amazing recipe, I want to share that, you know, because I don't believe that we own any of this. I don't think what I know to be true, I own. Like, I think I've been gifted with certain things and then I have a responsibility to share them so that others can also, if they choose, enjoy and benefit from it as well. So I think I would like to be able, Jill, to reach out in a bigger way than I have in the past and reach more people and just share my truth. It's not the only truth, but my truth, because yeah, it's been a beautiful journey and it's consistently worked for me, many things. Yeah.
You know, years ago, I heard something and I thought, wow, that is so true how it works. They said you've got 3 phases in your life.
Mm.
They said first you learn, then you earn,
Mm.
and then you return. And the return part is through all the learning and the earning, getting to the stage where you and I are now,
Mm.
that we have that knowledge. So now it is our turn
Yes.
to return what it is
Yes.
that we've learned while we've earned as well.
Yes.
And I found that quite comforting that each generation has new information to put in the pot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there's limitless combinations and permutations of how life can unfold, you know? But I do think, like, even within that vast array of variety, there's certain things that are consistent that generally work for humanity, you know? And at the very, very, when I say bottom, I don't mean it's least important, it's the most important. But I think fundamentally, that space of loving and being loved does it every time more than anything else. So, you know, I really know to be true that no matter what we're going through, whether it's yourself or a family member or a friend, if they could just stay in that space of knowing that they still deserve love, it shifts the whole experience. And again, so much of what we say sometimes is much easier said than to really take it on and to feel it and to embrace it, especially when you're going through a challenging time. But to even just plant the seed, you know, I think as we start to move into that stage of returning, we plant seeds and we can't be responsible for how every single seed grows, right? But I feel like we have that responsibility to plant the seeds. Just like maybe we'll plant a tree right now, but we won't be in our physical bodies by the time it's a big tree, but still important to plant that tree, to plant that seed. And so we just offer because we don't, one thing I feel like I don't know is like the time frame of things. So I might suggest something to somebody today, and it could be they get it right away, or it could be in a year. Or I have received emails from people who did a class with me literally like 5, 6 years ago, and all of a sudden they got an epiphany.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. And so that's what I mean. We don't know the timing, but we know what a good thing is. So we share the good things, and we have to let go of trying to control the timing of things. Have I mastered that? Not at all. But I feel that that is true. I feel that that is true. Yeah.
Bex, what is non-negotiable for you?
Respect and trust. Respect and trust. So it's non-negotiable in that if you don't show respect to yourself and to others, there's no real foundation there, because there's nothing to build off of, otherwise it's just, a house of cards. So if you don't feel trusted or respected, I feel, by people, or if you don't trust and respect yourself, it's very hard to build anything on top of the opposite of that, right? Because you need that strong foundation. Yeah.
So that's, I think, a very interesting statement, because how do so many children in this world who've been brought up by parents who beat them and tell them that they're worthless,
yeah,
how do they then think that they have value and self-respect? Because if they've already been told that they do not have worth, and then they go to school and then they play up and then they become a bully and then they turn to drugs and everything else, just because they haven't had that respect, just because they were smaller people.
right.
So maybe respect is something that needs to be taught in our education system, and actually explain why, and that if they haven't had that so-called apple pie background, that they are still worthy.
That's huge, Jill. And the undoing of that is quite a process, isn't it? Like, I'm very grateful because I raised 4 sons with my previous partner, and people would often say, wow, you have so many kids, like, what do you feel is most important? And that was really clear to me. Like, I would always say to give your children self-confidence and to know that you love them unconditionally. Doesn't mean you like everything they do, right?
Yes.
But even if they do things you don't like, you still love them, and they're 2 very different things. And sadly, I've seen too many children that have grown up in families where they feel like, my parents will only love me if A, B, C, and D, right? There should be no if, there should be no buts when it comes to love, because then it's not unconditional, then it's conditional, and that's a whole different kettle of fish, right? So I think
expectations on them, like, this is what you have to be or become to be part of this family, do not embarrass me, and then you don't allow that child to be the creative being that they are. And it's just own yourself. Once again, support, encourage, nurture.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so there's a lot of that, and it's such a big topic. I mean, because also people are always doing the best they can do with the tools that they have. But I don't want to use that as an excuse, because I feel like there's a way of improving what's in your toolbox,
And that's why we're having these conversations, because not everybody has been brought up the same way. So unless sometimes they listen to certain conversations, they will then see there is another way. That is not the only way. And also they don't have to play victim.
Right.
They can say, wow, okay, that's not the way, but what can I do for myself or for my children to actually break the pattern?
Absolutely. And so I really hope and pray that for all these people who do go through that, and there's so many, that they do come across a person like you, or a certain conversation or an experience or a feeling that triggers something to allow them to understand there is another way, that there is another way. And it's like, as soon as you've tasted it once, it can really, I think, change your life in a very important way. And you can stop having that knee-jerk reaction that you always had because you've tasted something else, and then start to create new patterning, right, in your brain, and then in your actions and in your life. And again, it's easy to say certain words, but I also know it's possible because I've seen people do it.
So where to from here? What that you wish to give to the world?
again, what I wish to give to the world is, I think, just that feeling of being inspired, of having a passion, of finding joy and finding beauty, finding those things that carry those higher frequencies so that when we're not in those places we want to be, we still know that we have it inside of ourselves and that we're able to reconnect and to rekindle and to move within ourselves, that which is going to allow us to move into being that best version of ourselves. And when I say the best version, I mean just being the most authentic, real expression of who we are. And again, there's limitless, beautiful ways to do that. But for me, it's often involved using the physical body, which is interesting. Yeah. But the end result was not just about the physical, but the end result for me was always the complete experience of what we can feel as being a human being.
So what advice would you give then to somebody just starting out on this discovery of self?
Yeah. Because another interesting thing, Julie, is, it's one thing to say, well, just do what you're passionate about, right? But a lot of people were like, I don't have a passion. I don't know what I'm passionate about, or nothing is really exciting me, And from my point of view, I would feel that happens when something is stuck within ourselves. When we don't feel impassioned, when we don't feel inspired, when we don't feel creative, that is happening because somewhere within our being, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, something is stuck somewhere. And so then the journey of finding where that place is can also be quite a big journey, a huge journey, but it's the most worthwhile one because we want to feel creative. We want to feel juicy in our life, Yeah.
So, Bex, in that book that I did with Alba, The Discourse,
Yeah.
it speaks about a lady called Barbara Sher, Sher.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a single mother, no money, really decided, I'm over this. I need to improve myself. I need to change my life. And she went to these so-called self-help courses. And she said, all it was, I just became poorer and didn't really make a change at all until she had that light bulb moment. And she ended up writing a book called Wishcraft. And in it, she gives proper exercises where people can write down what it is they enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. And it's actually a very difficult exercise because you start thinking, well, what is it that I actually do love?
Yeah.
But then you get on a roll. And then she says, do you like to do it alone? Do you like to do it with other people? When last did you do it? What is stopping you doing it? And then she makes you do exercises if money was no object.
Right.
So if people actually want to make a difference, mm-hmm. and they then do the exercises, that's a beautiful way of going, wow. And then maybe from there, then they can start with the yoga, they can start with art and creation and writing and cooking. And
because I think, Jill, in response to what you just said, like, even if in the beginning we're just like faking it, it's like fake it till you make it, or using your imagination as that tool to rewire the old patterning in our brain that is not serving us well, keeping us stuck, right? So that really does work. That absolutely does work. Use your imagination, fake it till you make it. And even if you don't feel it at first, like, if we can embrace as a concept that we were created with everything that we need, we've already got it within ourselves. We've already got it within ourselves. It's such a big shift to feeling like you're not worthy enough, you don't have enough, and you have to keep looking outside of yourself.
So just that into
it's a very different way to live your life. That you've already got it, and you just have to reconnect to it, as opposed to you never had it, you got to go find it. right? They're two very opposite ways.
So, Bex, this interview reaches people all over the world. At the moment, yes, the flights aren't fabulous, but once again, nothing lasts forever. So yes, we will be flying again. And if that is the case,
Yeah.
would you like to tell people about the special, that beautiful 64 square meter room that you've created, and what they can do, and they can contact you to actually use that space? Tell them about it.
Okay. So, Julie, before I moved to New Zealand a year and a half ago, I had an amazing, beautiful, yummy retreat center in Bali. And then somebody had my back because I sold it just 5 months before COVID. But I've spent really no less than 4 decades now creating space for people to come to. That seems to be my destiny, right? So whether it was just in my home or in studios or a retreat center, I love to create space where people can come in, start to reconnect with themselves, be in a place of beauty on every level, and just start to remember their potentials, to start to tap into those potentials. So here in New Zealand, in Nelson, I've created a beautiful space. I envisioned using it for couple things, for private retreats where people can come for a couple of nights, and they can either just come and be in the beautiful surroundings in the room and in the garden. We have a beautiful garden filled with so much bird life. Or we can also do private yoga classes, meditation classes. We can jump into the jacuzzi. We can just simply be, right? Just simply be. So that space is available. It's also here for groups. There have been some groups that have come and they've used the space. I think comfortably 20 people can come and be together and create a yummy, beautiful circle for different occasions. I'm happy to jump in if they'd like me to, or to allow them to use a space for themselves. But the most important reason why it's there is just to remember your creative energy, your creative potential, to remember that the tools are within, to reconnect, and to share what you know to be true through your own experience. I remember years ago, after I did my first 8-day Kundalini yoga immersion, my teacher said to me, go home and teach. I was like, excuse me, I just only did 8 days, you know? And she said, yes, but you know this much. Teach what you know, share what you know through your experience, because this will serve a lot of people for a very long time. And that was some of the best advice I ever received. It took all the weight off, all the expectations, all that feeling of like, I'm not smart enough or spiritual enough or experienced enough or this enough or that enough, right? But this I got. And this has served me so well. And I want to pass that on. So everybody listening to this, you've all got this, whatever this is, and just to share that. And it works so well. Don't worry about everything else. You know, we're never going to know it all anyways, but we do know this. So honor this, harness this, and share this. And that's why I create spaces for people to come to, so I can share this, and then they can learn this and they can share it, because we're in this together. We don't do this alone, right?
I just love that. I love it, love it, love it. And as you were talking, I could just see that space and say all the artists in Nelson having an exhibition. And then music out on the lawn, and like a beautiful day out for everybody. So many different ways to give and share.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
So Bex,
yes.
How would people contact you?
So how does this work? Do I give you my number? Is it going to show up on the screen?
I'm not that technical.
Okay, I'm not either. I would
say your website, or
if they go to www.cloud8, the number 8, like the infinity symbol, cloud8.nz.
Okay, so www.cloud and the 8 number 8
.nz.
Yes.
Or and they can reach out to you and you can give them my number.
Yes, and then they can say, look, we want to know more about Kundalini. We want to hire your space. We'd love to come for a retreat. Bex, we'd love to come and hear you speak. You can come to our institution. So many fabulous.
Limitless.
Bexy.
The only thing that limits us is the level of our imagination.
Well, Bex, I really, really look forward to seeing you next week.
Yes,
It's going to be fantastic.
fantastic.
And thank you so much for joining us today. Are there any last words you'd like to share with the audience before we end?
There's a quote that I love, and the quote is this: let the beauty that you love be what you do. Let the beauty that you love be what you do. That was by Rumi.
I love that. I love that. And Bex, I'm just so honored to have you share the space with us today. So until next time, everybody, from my heart to yours, and I know from Bexy's as well.
Absolutely.
Until, who knows, Bexy and I might come to a town, village, city.
We're going on the road, Jill. We're going to go on the road, yes.
And have a fat chat. Okay, then. Lots of love, and thanks for listening. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.